What do you say, guys? And welcome to Cover Crimson. We do this every day live. Clint Lamb, I'm Mick Gillispie. Look, we got a lot to talk about, but we're going to get into the depth chart. We're going to pick a couple positions today, and we're going to talk about the impact that position has, the starter, and then the backups. We'll get into a little bit about Kalen DeBoer, what he talked about. Not going to have a lot of communication from Kalen DeBoer as they get ready now for Western Kentucky. Yeah, it's that time. We got college football tomorrow. I mean, think about this. All that we're going to get into right here on Cover Crimson. And don't forget about covercrimson.com. But the other thing is that we got some swag. I'm going to show you guys. You can get some of this too. All right, Roll Tide, everybody. I love that song, man. It's like kind of something that Clint would have in his Forerunner, you know, to hit the heavy bass. You go in there, you put the windows down, even though it's real hot, just kind of lean to the side, look cool as you're riding by. But Roll Tide, everybody. It's great to see all you guys. Get in the comment section. You know, we're going to answer you as well. But right off the bat, Clint, I mean, look at this, man. And you can buy these. You can get these.
Yeah, you can. Annual subscription right now. covercrimson.com comes with a free t-shirt. I'm not going to lie. It feels incredible. Fits incredible. I'm loving it. I mean, what do you think about it? You like it?
Yeah, look, Norman and Steve and Bob and C-Bama and Southern Red, love Southern Red, Joseph, all you guys that are hanging out with us right now. I'll be honest with you. I show up to the party. Clint and I are here. I'm like, you know what? I might need to put a shirt on. So I put my shirt on and I'm like, whoa, okay, this is comfortable. I like it, man. I got one for my son. They're allowed to wear shirts Friday to school. You know, like I'm a dad that says you got to wear a polo shirt to school. But on Friday, you know, it's Friday's Friday. We'll let you mix it up. Friday. It's Bama Friday. So if you want to go to school, you want out of the polo, I need you wearing a Bama shirt on Friday if there's a game on Saturday. Because I gotta teach these kids the right way of doing life, and the right way of doing life is crimson and white. But no, this is super comfortable, man. So you guys got to support the channel. You got to support covercrimson.com, and you need to get one of these, and especially if you're in Liberty Hill, Texas. I mean, you need this in Liberty Hill, Texas. Think about when you go to Walmart and you got one of these guys on in Liberty Hill, Texas. Everybody's going to be like, "Where'd you get that, man?"
I feel like this is the start of an apparel line too. Like, this is the first shirt. I feel like, we got some koozies, couple of different things already. But as far as the apparel line, man, I think it's starting here. We might have to get some hats, some really dope hats. I mean, I'm loving it, man. It's Friday. There's college football on tomorrow. There's Alabama football happening a week from tomorrow. Life's pretty good, brother.
Yeah, look, Brock, good to see you, Chris. And I wanted to know where Kalen DeBoer was from. Dothan, Alabama, man. So we got some some Bo Weevils in the house here with us hanging. I mean, we know about the Dothan area. Clint, with all of that said, new shirts, new show, live show right now. Let's just start kind of grinding out some things on this depth chart. And I see like where other people are kind of like getting into the depth chart, but I'm going to tell you guys this right here. Nobody knows depth chart Alabama better than Clint Lamb. I mean, that's kind of like Clint Lamb's like, for me, I'm probably the guy that's going to help you at the mullet toss. I can make you one hell of a Bloody Mary, like I'm going to get you a cold Yingling or a Bud Light or whatever. I'm going to hang with you. But for Clint, it is his thing is depth chart. So I just want to start kind of talking depth chart stuff with you. And what I want to know is like, okay, we get a lot of these aren't position battles, right? We kind of know. Look at this, man. Meridian, Mississippi. I just went through there. I was at Pearl River the other day, Brock. So Roll Tide, man. I love this, man. Start of football season, Michael, is like Christmas. So Clint, let's start with this. Latest news on the wide receivers, and then kind of give me your depth chart. And then I'm going to kind of pick your brain on a couple things that I've got questions about when it comes to these wide receivers.
Well, we're having trouble figuring out. Okay, you would assume that it's going to be Jeremy Bernard, Kobe Prentice, and Kendrick Law as the three starters on the depth chart. Like they're the kind of, you got Prentice and Law. They're the returning guys who have been contributing. You've got Jeremy Bernard, the big time transfer that's coming in that's expected to assume a massive role. And then, so you would expect them to be at the top. You would expect them to be the ones out there with the first team offense for the first snap of the season. But then we've also been hearing and somewhat seeing, if you include Fan Day, about Ryan Williams and Cole Adams also getting not just reps with the first team, but in some of these situations, they've actually been two of the first receivers out there for the first snap along with Bernard. So then you start wondering, okay, is that them just kind of mixing and matching, changing things up? What does that mean? That could mean a lot. It could mean absolutely nothing. I think at the very least, it tells you that Cole Adams and Ryan Williams are going to be a part of the rotation from week one. I mean, they're going to be a part of this offense. And so it probably doesn't really matter who's out there for the first snap, unless maybe it's Ryan Williams. And then it's like, okay, first snap, first game, 17-year-old kid out there going against Western Kentucky. That's probably a statement. If he's not out there, I don't think that's, any sort of problem. He's definitely going to be a part of the rotation. And then you got to also include Emmanuel Henderson, who is, you can consider a veteran guy as far as years in the system or years on campus, but doesn't have a whole lot of playing experience outside of special teams. And there's a lot of people who are very excited about him. So I would say that's your top 6 receivers right now. I do think there's going to be a rotation, a pretty heavy rotation. And then it's a matter of determining like what I'll be curious to see against Western Kentucky. I mean, obviously we'll note who jogged out there first, but I want to see time in the slot. Kalen DeBoer yesterday was talking about Kobe Prentice, and he described him as a guy who could play inside and out. But he also made mention that they kind of want everybody to be able to play inside and out. So you look at a guy like Cole Adams, who I think does have some outside ability, but I've kind of viewed him as like a slot only option. It seems like they'll be moving and matching these guys in different types of roles a little bit, to at least, to some degree. And so I'll be kind of keeping a lookout for that. What's, you need money on third down. Who's your go-to guy? Who's Jaylen Milroe's go-to guy? All those things we'll be monitoring, but it's going to involve, at least in the early stages, these 6 receivers.
Really interesting. And I'm just kind of curious too. Like if somebody goes down, I kind of feel excited about Caleb Odom. Rico Scott's a name that just kind of popped up a few times. Could Amari Jefferson be somebody? But Coach Saban seemed to love Bubba Hampton. Remember, didn't he call him a dog? Out of Texas, he was like that one of those late guys that we flipped at the very end. And so I'm just curious, like, once you get past like the 3 or 4 guys that we kind of expect to see, right? I mean, like, we're going to have Kendrick Law, right? We're going to have Jeremy Bernard. We're going to have Kobe Prentice. We know that, right? Cole Adams, probably, one of those names that you're going to hear a lot. We don't know if Ryan Williams is, but everything that we're getting from practice is that he's going to force them to put him in the games and expect big things from him. Just how quickly, we don't know, but probably not going to take too long. But of those guys that are kind of not in the top 4 or 5, who do you feel like is the one to keep an eye on the most?
I mean, I think the easy choice is going to be Ryan Williams for a lot of people. That doesn't mean that he's the correct choice necessarily, though. I think really any of those guys who are outside the top 3 are worth mentioning. And I would say it's all, I mean, if it ends up being the 3 that we think, Law, Prentice, and Bernard, and Adams and Williams are part of that kind of second, that rotation. They're not out there with the starters for the first snap. I would, or you can make an argument for really any of them. And I don't want to forget about Emmanuel Henderson either, because we're hyping up Cole Adams, we're hyping up Ryan Williams. Both of them bring very intriguing skill sets, but Emmanuel Henderson, one of the fastest players on the team, kind of an athlete running back coming out of high school, has been transitioning to receiver, but we kind of forget, you always take note of the players that Nick Saban would mention early, and pretty much from the jump with Emmanuel Henderson, he was super high on him and just talked about his attitude. He does things the right way. And you would think with his talent being a former top 50 player, came from a small school. Obviously, there was going to be some adjustment period, switching positions and acclimating to the different level of competition. But just what he brings to the table from a skill set standpoint, being able to win vertical. We know this offense is going to want to press defenses vertically. I think that's a guy to keep an eye on, but really just all 6 of them, in some ways they're all kind of similar. And then, in other ways they bring different, elements and can do things a little bit differently. And I'll be curious to see exactly who ends up emerging. But at this point, I wouldn't point out one player in particular, other than, a guy like Ron Williams, for the simple point of, I think they're going to have a bunch of really good receivers. But if you're talking true alpha, number one, dominant, no one can stop him. You can do whatever you want to, bracket coverage, all that. The best chance Alabama has of having that guy in 2024 is Ron Williams. But he's got to be ready. Like, I'm not saying he's going to be that guy, but he's got, he has that skill set and that talent. So, I mean, obviously, if he's not with kind of those first 3 for the first snap, he becomes probably the easy choice.
Who do you think that Jaylen Milroe's most comfortable with of this group?
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know. I think probably, I don't know if there is a favorite. I wouldn't say, I mean, obviously seeing practices and stuff would have helped in this area. Obviously, and there was times where, Bryce Young, his comfort, in third down situations seemed to be Ja'Cory Brooks at one time. And then that kind of changed. But I would say, it would probably be Apprentice if I had to guess, as far as, early in the season. Maybe a Cole Adams ends up being that guy. Kind of, when you say kind of best chemistry, kind of his go-to person, it depends on what you're asking. Like, is this the guy that, Milroe last year was just taking deep shot after deep shot, it seemed like? Is that the kind of stuff you're talking about? Are you talking about it's 3rd and 5 and you got to throw for a first down? Who's he going to in those situations? That's where I think the Prentice Adams thing comes into play.
Yeah, very interesting. Norman, thank you, man. He said he signed up for $1, literally the best dollar he's spent in a while. I mean, think about it, like $1, dude. Like, that's what's in your ashtray. It's not like signing up for for this is going to break the bank, but it means a lot to us because we're trying to build this thing. So Norman, roll tide to you, my friend, and thank you so much. And I don't know how you do it, Michael, like living down in Auburn. That's the one part in the state where there might actually be more Auburn fans than Alabama. Although when I worked at Crimson Tide Sports Network, I worked with a guy named Tom Roberts, and Tom used to tell me that surprisingly, there's more Alabama fans than Auburn fans in Auburn. That's what he used to tell me. I don't know if that's true or not, but the guy was a legend, right? Oh yeah, and Southern Red, thank you. 117 right now in the chat. We need 117 thumbs up. We really do. And you guys basically what you guys do is by subscribing, by commenting, by doing the thumbs up, you're supporting the channel. It helps us get into the algorithm, and all of the stuff that helps us get paid, even super chats. If you ever have want to ask a question or want to throw one our way, it means a lot to us. It all goes into the money that they're using to pay us, so they went out and got the best of the best. I mean, Clint and Mike Johnson and Jake Coker and, and Stacy and Chris, I mean, I don't know if I'm the best of the best, but I'm part of the crew. I'm part of the crew. But what we got to do is we got to make sure that to keep this thing going, like we just keep building the numbers, like the more you guys that hang out with us, the better off this whole thing's going to be. So, so thank you guys, and roll tide. All right. Let's get back to this, right? Because I was like, okay, here we are like a week away, right? I want Clint's depth chart, which is his thing. And I'm like, I'm just going to pick a couple spots. And we just heard wide receiver. The best part about the wide receiver is that nobody got hurt. It's not like, I mean, we had an injury, a significant injury in spring, but we didn't have any injuries in the fall. And I think that's a big, big deal because we're going into the first game, except unless something happens healthy. Let's talk the stinger position. First off, explain to everyone again what stinger is in this group, and then let's talk about Campbell and Jefferson and some of the guys that we're expecting to see in that spot.
Well, I think a lot of times, like when you watch, the stinger's the weak side linebacker, the will linebacker. It's a different name for it. if you're watching things, I've said on this show a couple of times, like strength is determined by field, side.
Mhm.
Whichever's the wide side of the field, if that's to the left, it's strong left. If it's to the right, it's strong right. And you've got the bandit, the strong side defensive end lining up to the field side. You've got the husky lining up to the field side. You've got the wolf lining up on the weak side, wolf weak side. Same thing as the jack linebacker. So he's lining up to the boundary side. What's interesting about the inside linebackers is while it is considered the will or weak side linebacker compared to the Mike, which is the strong, which you would think would be the strong side inside linebacker in a 4-2-5 defense, it's actually kind of the opposite. Like the Mike will actually be playing to the boundary side with the stinger or the will playing to the field side. And the reason for that is typically your will is a little bit more athletic, can roam, can cover more ground. And as far as gap responsibility, you want the Mike handling a lot of, your run stopping gaps and things like that. So it actually, a guy like Jihad Campbell fits perfectly. I think he would fit perfectly at Mike. I think he'd fit perfectly at Stinger. I think, in a lot of ways, he'd probably be a perfect fit at Wolf if he continued to grow in that area. Just because, he's 6'3", got some length to him, long arms, 244 pounds. But him fitting in there at that Stinger position, they'll move him around, I think, and let him do some different things. But he's that perfect sideline to sideline linebacker, a lot of athleticism, can do a lot of your tackle to tackle work. But I like him a lot. I think Justin Jefferson, he's kind of also a perfect stinger. And I kind of said that from the moment they hired Kane Womack, him being a little bit more undersized, great space player, want him dropping into coverage, want him roaming sideline to sideline, doing all the different things. And I've kind of made mention several times, if something happens to Jihad Campbell, Justin Jefferson's coming in at stinger. If something happens to Deontay Lawson at Mike, with Justin Jefferson being kind of that third linebacker who is viewed as a third starter, I think they would move move Jihad Campbell from stinger to Mike and bring in Justin Jefferson at the stinger spot. So a lot of versatility there. Definitely a position that is going to play a vital role. I think both the Mike and the Will, or the Mike and the Stinger, are going to play a huge role in this Kane Womack defense. And I'm excited to see how it turns out. It's a deep group. J.O. is certainly a guy who's come along. I think he can play that spot. I think he can play the Mike. It's a very impressive collection of talent who I think is going to do big things for Alabama's defense in 2024.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. Of these linebackers that are kind of taking different roles, I guess the first thing I want to know is how much different is Stinger from what, Coach Saban had that? What was it, Mike? I remember him talking about Mike linebacker a lot. Like, what's different in the position? Like, what is it that Womack expects from that spot that Saban didn't, or vice versa?
I don't think they're vastly different. I don't think there's like this massive difference between Mike and Will. And Nick Saban has said that. It's kind of, with you having guys, the defensive front playing a one gap scheme rather than being two gappers. A lot of times when you're two gapping, you're controlling gaps, really both gaps, and the linebackers playing off of that. So your linebackers can be a lot more aggressive in a one gap scheme, knowing exactly what gap they're responsible for, and they can be in a lot more of an attacking style. And so, that's, certainly a difference. And Alabama's got the perfect guys. I love how, if you're going to move to a true 4-2-5 defense, and, that's going to be kind of your base, you need to be able to have the size. Technically it's a front seven because you include that husky as a seventh player in the box. But when you're talking about whether it's your defensive front or your second level guys, like your off ball linebackers, you don't want to lose athleticism because they're very important as far as sideline to sideline and rallying and things like that. But I think it's important that they added size with getting Deontay Lawson to 239, with getting Jihad Campbell from 230 to 244. They now have the ability, if I had to guess, we haven't really seen it yet, but they should have the ability to hold up better, being a little less guys in the box as far as you're sacrificing some size with your husky compared to a third linebacker, and add size at the rest of the positions. And I think that should really help them. It's not a huge difference, but I'll be curious to see if they do end up having a pretty steady rotation at off-ball linebacker, because Kane Womack at South Alabama, I mean, you look at James Miller, Trey Kaiser, and Khalil Jacobs. All of those guys were in 450 to 550 snaps as far as how much they played last year. So they had a true 3-man rotation. I don't think it will be that balanced because I think Jahad Campbell and Deontay Lawson are two of the best off-ball linebackers in the country. But from what we've heard about Justin Jefferson, he's earned some playing time, and you're going to see him on the field, and it's just a matter of determining how much.
Guys, I want to throw this up here. Lake Show, what's up, man? You want to get a shirt? Reed just sent me a text. He said, look, man, let everybody know they got to get the annual Crimson, the Cover Crimson membership. You get the annual, and he said he'll send these shirts out on Monday. So so you'll have it. I mean, you need to have it by a kickoff on Saturday.
It is very comfortable shirt. It feels good, and I knew it breathes fantastic. You talking about in the summer, man? I'm telling you, is it not breathable? I'm a bigger guy myself, so I need these breathable shirts. I don't need something suffocating me too much. And this thing breathes. I'm enjoying it.
Oh man, that's so funny. I don't look at you as a bigger guy, though. I don't have you as a bigger guy, but that's so funny. That's so funny. Like hearing you say that. All right, so let's just kind of go back to practice and getting ready. Where's Alabama right now as a program? Like where are we? Like, what are we doing now? Like Friday, we had a practice. They're not talking to the media for a while. Like, that the game plan is going to be installed. When do we expect to go from, just out there hitting dummies and, and doing fundamental stuff to getting ready for what Western Kentucky is going to bring to the table? And how does that whole transition happen?
Well, DeBoer said this weekend they'll really start putting some stuff in for Western Kentucky. They've already done a little bit, putting some film in front of the guys, showing them certain situations, tendencies, those sort of things. But I think that's going to ramp up a lot this weekend. And then you're going to have all of next week, which is your kind of standard game week, where they'll be putting all their focus on Western Kentucky. And I think that, we'll talk a lot more next week about the Hilltoppers. It's an interesting team, both offensively and defensively. They do some different things on both sides of the football. Don't want to spoil that too much, but I will say it will be a challenge for Alabama as far as kind of what they like to do as far as throwing the football, having a young secondary. And I will be very curious to see how the pass rush helps out that young secondary, that new secondary in these early stages. That's going to be absolutely critical. If you can put pressure on the quarterback, kind of force him out of his comfort zone, force him to leave the pocket. The more you can do that, the better, you are as far as on the back half of your defense. And as guys are kind of growing and developing and getting more experience, you want as much of that as you possibly can. And obviously Alabama from a talent standpoint is going to have a significant advantage against the Hilltoppers. So, we'll see what they're able to do and how much they're able to kind of help out the secondary. If they can do that, and kind of go ahead, and because there's still some question marks at Wolf, but it's not really a question mark if you question the talent. It's just we don't know pecking order or exact workloads. And so, I just want to see where the pressure comes from, which guys are playing, and just see if they can give the secondary some time to develop. Because if they can do that, this defense, while there are some concerns as far as drop off because they do have such little experience, or at least at cornerback, you definitely have to like what they could potentially become if they could overcome some of these early season inexperience problems.
All right, couple questions from you guys before we get out of here. Norman, I said I've heard a lot of talk about building depth earlier this season. With that said, who else will make it on the field for those, I guess, reps, right? Would that be? So what do you think?
Linebackers.
Oh, from the linebackers. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what he's asking because we were talking about the linebackers.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're going to have Deontay Lawson and Jahad Campbell seeing the most action. Obviously, you're going to see some of Justin Jefferson. I don't know what that will entail. Does that mean getting him on the field alongside those other two guys in certain packages or situations? Because I do think it's interesting. You could have a package where you move Jahad Campbell more to an edge type of player and bring Justin Jefferson on the field. One thing we know that Womack doesn't like doing a ton, or at least we haven't up to this point, is he's going to kind of stay in that 4-2-5 defense. He's not going to have, a lot of dime and, bring a 6 defensive back onto the field. You don't see that a ton from him. So they might just simply move some pieces around and kind of maintain that 4-2-5 defense, but maybe inject some more athleticism. And if you got a guy like Jahad Campbell out there who can run and hit, you bring in Justin Jefferson, who that's exactly what he's built for. Maybe you can do that. But a guy like Jeremiah Alexander is another one that, he's made that transition from edge rusher to off-ball linebacker last year. It was definitely a work in progress. He went from being 258 as a freshman to being 249 last year. Now he's all the way down to 232. So, I mean, he's down close to 30 pounds since he got on campus. And I just think being that, you look at him compared to Deontay Lawson and Jahad Campbell, both those two guys are way bigger than him at this point. And so you might think, okay, why did he need to go down that far? Well, you needed to go down far enough where you can function as an athlete. And then maybe if you put back on some of that mass and size the right way, muscle wise, as you kind of transition and your body gets used to being lighter and playing lighter and being able to run and all those things, then maybe you can do that. But we saw the same thing from Kendrick Blackshire. He was massive. They got him down in that low 230 range. I think Jeremiah Alexander has a chance to be a really, really good player and could contribute on special teams. I would expect him to contribute on special teams this year. And I think that if they had to work to him for whatever reason, he's linebacker 4 right now, in my opinion. But I think, you could do a lot worse as far as your linebacker 4. So those would be the 4 main ones if you're talking about actually playing or having a chance to play. Obviously, if you work past that, you start talking about true freshmen. I'm a big fan of J.O. I think he's got a very bright future in Tuscaloosa. But, I probably think, just ideally he gets at least a year to develop and learn.
Okay. All right. Final one. Sam says we have a top 5 offense for sure. Kyle, a friend of both of ours, does a good job talking about why can't we score 40 points a game unless Kirby's game is very difficult. I think that Alabama has the potential to have one of the great offenses, maybe the best offense in the SEC, one of them anyway. And then that if this team's going to have a lot of success, that it's going to be about taking advantage of turnover, scoring, and then obviously going down the field and scoring. I feel like this is going to be a lot more like 2020 than it has been in years past because I'm not totally ready to say, hey, we've got a shutdown defense. I think we're going to have an opportunistic defense where we get some turnovers, but there's probably going to be some plays that other teams make. Everything's geared for defenses to fail and offenses to succeed. But Alabama's team's definitely built around that offensive line, which is going to be if the offensive line comes out and they're not dominant and they're not great, I am going to be so disappointed. And I think it all builds from that. I love the running backs. I love the quarterback spot. I want to see one of these wide receivers or 2 of these guys really step up and be go-to guys. And I feel like the tight ends are going to be pretty good too. So I could see that. Yeah.
And I mean, when you talk about 40 points a game, you and I both are on the same page where we think Jaylen Milroe is going to take a huge step forward.
I do.
I truly believe that. I think he's got immense talent. I think the fact that he can be a volume runner, if you need him to, I don't know that you will necessarily want him to be that, but if there's games where that's kind of how you have to win, then hey, do it however you have to do it. And they have that ability. That option is always available to them, and defenses know that it's always available to them. So even if they're not using it, it's the threat of knowing that that's a possibility. That was a huge part of what Jaylen Milroe did last year when he was willing to run and he was being used as a guy, on design quarterback runs and all that stuff. My point here is that we think that Jaylen Milroe is going to improve significantly. The good news here is that you've also got Ty Simpson, who is making tremendous progress from what we've heard.
Great
so
point.
if you're one of those fans that, oh man, I'm worried about Jaylen Milroe, is he going to improve? Well, you can at the very least rest assured that Alabama has a really good chance that if Jaylen Milroe doesn't improve, which I do not agree with at all, I think that's not going to be the case. Yep. But you can bring in a guy like Ty Simpson, who you've got another chance. And that doesn't mean that he's a guarantee and he's going to come in and set the world on fire and he's just sitting back there and he's the sure thing. But you've got 2 really, really good chances of getting super quality play out of your quarterback position. I think it's going to be Milroe that's going to be that guy. And then you start talking about the offensive line, like you said, really good group up front, tons of potential. There's going to be a gelling period. I mean, don't get me wrong. 3 starters back from last year's squad. That's good. And it's kind of like in every other, kind of where you got left tackle, left guard, and then right guard. So you don't have anybody playing next to a guy who has not played, at Alabama plus Parker Brailsford's got plenty of experience. It will take them a little time to gel, but I really like that unit and what they could potentially do. But yeah, I mean, I think when you look at this offense, there's no reason to think that they won't be able to be, a really good group, attack defenses in a variety of ways, and, really cause a lot of headaches and score a lot of points.
Hey, great hanging out with you guys. Over 160 of you now. So make sure you give us a thumbs up. We're supposed to get off right now, but I say let's stick around for a couple more minutes just because you guys are all hanging out with us and it's Friday and everybody's fired up about some football. And they say that Friday is the weakest day to do this. But you guys are going, hell no, it's not. I
mean,
Alabama
fans.
We're here right now. So I'm going to take a couple more questions and let Clint kind of chew on them. Edward wants to know who starts at dime, corner, or safety. I think I know the answer to these, which is crazy. But Clint, this is your area.
Well, I mean, how much dime will you see? I'm sure there's instances where you will see it, but I like I said, I mean, Womack wants to try to remain in, kind of a nickel look as often as possible. As far as who that guy would be, I think it really could go in a number of different directions. But when you start looking at, I think, King Mack could certainly be a guy who ends up being like a third safety you bring onto the field. All
right, stop right there. Let's talk King Mack. Before,
okay.
I hate to interrupt you, but
that's fine.
They were asking DeBoer about King Mack, and it. I've told you guys this. Go ahead and put the King Mack. I'm going to get the King Mack like gear. I just love the name. And they're saying the guy's flying all over the place in practice. Like, this is the guy that transferred from Penn State to Alabama.
Versatile, very, very versatile. The fact that he can add depth at both Husky and safety is huge. I think he plays really physical. One of the things that I heard Womack, I think it was Womack. It could have been DeBoer. I always get those two confused as far as like what was said and by who. But one of them brought up the fact that he is kind of a gamer. Guys, that is so big. I think he's a guy who practices well, but I also think he's a player that when he gets on the field, he elevates his game when the lights are brightest. And I think that is absolutely huge. I think that's something that the secondary, could definitely use. It could end up being him if they want to go the third cornerback route, which, I think probably you don't see too much as far as three cornerbacks on the field at the same time because of the way that the defense is structured. So it's probably going to be a safety if I had to guess. But if it's a corner, I would assume probably Deshaun Jones would make the most sense. If it's Xavier Brown starting on the outside, which that's what I'm predicting right now. We'll have to wait and see. But, Deshaun Jones has a lot of versatility. He can play field. He can play boundary, left, right. I think he could also play inside if you needed him to a little bit in those dime situations. So I don't know how much you'll see of dime packages with 6 defensive backs, but I think if you do, I mean, my choice would probably be a King Mack because I think he's even got, he's got enough athleticism and stuff where I think he can survive in the short area quickness. A lot of short area quickness. If you're going to be playing over a slot, as an overhang player or whatever, you need to have that short area quickness. And that's, kind of, in my opinion, one of the things that he does pretty well. So I think he would be an excellent 6 defensive back if that's what Alabama elects to do.
All right. Yeah. And then corner. I mean, I feel like this, Clint, with corner, right? It's got to be Deshaun Jones over the 5 stars just because of the experience. But I don't know how long that holds, right? I mean, I just feel like if I'm the guy that's coaching, I'm going to feel a little bit more comfortable with the fact that the guy played at Wake Forest, right? And then Damani Jackson, I mean, everybody's telling me that Damani Jackson just looks the part. He's the size. He's kind of he's the cornerback version of Justice Haynes, where you just look at him and you're like, okay, this guy just fits the bill. The body size, the speed, his ability to move. He's locking people down over there. He's physical.
He's got everything you want in the, as far as, physically and a lot of what you want mentally, as far as what we know and what we've seen. The only thing that I want to see improvement from him on is just the ball skills, making plays in the football as far as bringing them in, because he does everything well, but he hadn't really been an interception guy where he turns good quality reps into turnovers. And we know in Kane Womack's defense, that's kind of what, it's any defense. You want to, get turnovers, but Womack is really, they put a huge emphasis on generating turnovers. And when you're getting those opportunities, you got to capitalize on those opportunities. So if Damani Jackson can do that, he's going to be one of the best cornerbacks in the country. Being 6'1", just under 200 pounds, I would say, you can call him a 6'1", 200-pound corner. Got the length, very physical, can play off coverage, can play press, can do all the different things for you, man. So I think he's going to have a massive year for Alabama. And I think that it's much needed because of, what you lost last year and the fact that you needed experience. So I think he'll end up being one of the most important offseason additions for Alabama, freshman or transfer, kind of out of everybody.
All right. Joseph says, I think the defense is going to be dominant. Joseph Higginbotham. I used to call games for Coach Higginbotham. He was the head coach at County High. Legend, man. Legend. Hopefully you're related to him. He was an awesome dude, too. Like, it was like kind of hanging out with like Bear Bryant, of high school football. I mean, that mentality, right? All right, here's another one. Wait, guys, we're overtime right now. I mean, we're supposed to be like 25 minutes, but we're doing this because there's a lot of you guys hanging out with us on a Friday, and we just we're not ready to pack it up yet. We because of you guys hanging out. SK says we need the LSU Milroe. I'm with you, man. Like, I felt like watching the game against Michigan, Milroe ran the ball tentatively. And I felt like that was one of the biggest problems I had with the offense last year. You can't run tentatively. You have to run through them. And, that's a big part of what Milroe brings to the game is that he can throw deep. Hopefully he gets better with the short range stuff. That's really where he needs to kind of improve, like the set and throw and, the drop back and get rid of the football, not burp the baby. The deep pass is beautiful and the running's a great. But when he ran against LSU, he ran like his feet were on fire.
Can we get LSU's defense, every week, that LSU defense, because that helps. That secondary was awful. I fully expect their defense to be much improved this year. So I'm not talking can Alabama get 2024 LSU defense each and every week, but that 2023 defense, man, if Jaylen Milroe could play them 16 times this season, I guarantee you he'd take it. Because, man, and his skill set, just like I said, the fact that he can strain you so much with his legs, the fact that you have to worry about that vertical passing ability, guys, I'm telling you what, if he can learn to win from within the pocket, both, physically and mentally, pre-snap, post-snap, if he starts getting any sort of consistency on winning from within the pocket, being able to understand, blitz recognition, how to, move his protection to help him, how to go to, hot reads, hot routes, all those different things, he is going to be unstoppable because of just what else he brings to the table. If he can only throw deep and then run the football, that can certainly win you a lot of football games. That's enough in a lot of games. But there are going to be certain teams who have the range at safety, the talent at corner to turn and run, and then have the dogs up front who can kind of keep up with you and keep him in check. And so that can really strain you. Michigan had that to a certain extent. I mean, to a massive extent. Georgia had that to a degree, even though they went with that 2 quarterback spy thing, which was weird. They did some different things, and they were willing to do that because they weren't concerned about Jaylen Milroe at all as far as the intermediate stuff, at least not consistently. And so you'll give up the plays that he does, end up doing well if you don't have to worry about that being a consistent problem. If it becomes a consistent problem for defenses this year, Jaylen Milroe is going to be unstoppable because there's nothing that he won't be able to do if he can do that.
Yeah, right. Chris says Milroe, LSU was unstoppable. Partly, remember, there were a lot of inexperienced corners and safeties in that game. You remember that? And he just ran right by those guys. I mean, it was pretty funny watching him just, he looked like Forrest Gump. Like, he was just like, he just would go, and they're like, go, stop, be like into the end zone. Like, they couldn't do anything about it.
There was one play where he's, he takes off with the football. He's attacking the corner, the angle that he's taking, and he's drawing that safety up. And just, you can tell his eyes were locked on the corner, wasn't even watching the safety, knowing what the safety was doing. And that because he wasn't, if he'd have turned and looked at the safety's going to break down, make sure he doesn't, cut back inside. But Milroe did a phenomenal job of picking the exact perfect time to move his eyes off of the corner, stick his foot in the ground and get straight up field. And the safety had overrun and it was a touchdown. And just as a runner, man, he's slick. He knows what he's doing. He's just got to be willing to do it a little bit more in certain games. And he's got to be able to have that complementary short to intermediate passing game to complement what he does with his legs and what he does deep.
All right, Glenn Teague. Obviously, he's cousins with George. Do you think, or have you heard that he's better at reading defenses, Milroe?
Yes. I mean, and I've made this comparison before. When the off season leading up to the 2017 season, all we had heard was Jalen Hurts is learning to win from within the pocket more. He's doing this, he's doing that. He's not taking off. It's not one read takeoff. He's made so much progress here. And so you think, okay, he's about to be a dog, and then you get out there against Florida State. It's a lot different than wearing a black no contact jersey like you are in practice.
Right.
And Florida State's defense was really good that year. Derwin James, they had a bunch of guys, and he immediately reverted back to being that guy who was a one read takeoff. And he looked very overwhelmed. It was a good defense. I totally understand it. But, so you can talk about how much guys have improved in certain areas, and then you get out there and you see them do it live and just they don't. I mean, just when instincts take over and things go live, they can't handle, showing that improvement. They need more time. Hurts eventually got much better at that, but just one off season from freshman year to sophomore wasn't enough. So, we'll have to wait and see. But from everything we've heard, Milroe has made pretty significant progress on that front.
I feel like Milroe's been better at drop back passing than Hurts. I mean, look, when he was hurt last year, in my opinion, he was hurt. Texas A&M, he couldn't move, stood in the pocket, come from behind, we win. Now he got some help from the defense too, but at the same time, there's been those situations, you throw an interception, we get behind, and then the guy just he figures out ways to make big plays. He puts the work in. I'd be surprised if it's not a vast improvement in that area.
Yeah. I mean, and with Milroe, I think a lot of people don't realize, you'll watch the Texas game and that first interception that he had. You'll watch the Ole Miss game and that interception in the end zone. And it's you can't do that. I mean, no matter what, that's just those are sometimes you're just going to make a bad read. They get you on something. It happens to everybody. Happened to Peyton Manning. You get outsmarted every once in a while. Mm-hmm. But those two interceptions in particular were two that you look at and you're like, that cannot happen. The good news is you really didn't see that anymore from Milroe after Ole Miss. He showed improvement in that area. But more importantly, if you're somebody that kind of knows what you're looking for, what Milroe wouldn't see, as far as the defense presenting a blitz, you need to be checking out of a certain play. You need to be doing this or doing that. And, there were times last year where he just wouldn't see something that's so blatantly obvious, you have to see it. And so that's the biggest issue with him, where you want to see improvement. That's why I say, pre-snap, what are you seeing? Are you seeing what the defense is presenting you? Are you picking up on tells as far as what they're trying to show you, but they're really doing something else? Because a lot of defenses will. And that's just something that with game repetition and experience, he obviously was going to get better at, and I think he did get better at it. But now that he's had another off season to kind of learn, he's got one of the best quarterback developers out there in Kalen DeBoer, kind of helping him along, teaching him what to be looking for. I would fully expect Milroe to take a huge step forward on that front, and you won't see that as the average fan. You probably won't see a lot of that, where he's now, seeing the blitz or something else pre-snap that they're presenting, and he's taking advantage of it. You just think it's a routine play that worked, when really it worked because Milroe saw it. And so, if that starts happening, we'll be on this show talking about it and pointing it out. But I'll fully expect him to take massive step forward on that front. And if he can do that, this is going to be a really good Alabama offense. And even if he doesn't do that, I still think it's going to be a really good offense. But I just think when I talk about unstoppable Milroe, if he can start to do some of these things, man, it's going to be fun to be an Alabama fan and watching him play football.
As you hang out with us, guys, make sure that you like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. I mean, we're almost at 200 right now. And as they're signaling me to get off, I'm telling you guys, if you can get us to 200, we'll keep talking right now. Now, I want to throw this up, right? Jeremiah Taylor, he says Milroe for governor. But I'm not paying attention to that. I'm paying attention to that Jack Russell he's got. And this is mine from when I was in college. That's Poncho right there. Can you see him?
Poncho? That's incredible.
That was Poncho. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Poncho, man. Like back in the day, that was Poncho. When look at the old A helmet there, baseball helmet. Jack Russells, man, that was my dog. Now I got those Jack Russells are they're a little, they can be a little temperamental, like with kids, not so good. So I've got I've got a golden doodle. It's like, and his mentality is you're like, hey, stop doing that. He's like, okay, yeah, I'm not doing it. Like you say to the Jack Russell, you're like, hey, stop doing that. He's like, you talking to me? Like this big, and you're getting intimidated by like a 15-pound dog. But yeah, man. Steve says he had one too, man. They're the best. Like I used to have this dog, this Jack Russell. I played on the lacrosse team at Alabama, the club team. We used to go on the quad and throw the ball. Me and my buddy Chris Klein and his Jack Russell was named Elvis, and Elvis would run and get the balls that we missed. So we'd be out there, and I'm going to be honest with you, Clint. We were out there trying to impress the females. Like they cared about lacrosse. But we had we had a really fun ball game going with this dog, and they would always be like, "Oh, Elvis," and then they would come over, not for us, but for Elvis. So
that's how you get them in, man.
Hey, man. Yeah. Look, from Wicksburg, Roll Tide. Thank you for hanging out with us today. And from Central New York, Mike, man, Central New York, Roll Tide. I know New York. How far are you from Bath, New York? That was where my dad was in the VA in Bath, New York. So that's like a beautiful place. It's a lot different than New York City. Bath, New York, and Elmira and Syracuse. I almost went to school at Syracuse, by the way. Think about this, Clint. If I went to Syracuse, you wouldn't know me right now.
Yeah, that's very true.
All right, last one, unless you guys got to get us up to over 200. This is the last one today. Does Bama D get more sacks and interceptions than last year? Clint Lamb, you tell him the reason why. The answer to that is yes.
Sacks. I don't remember exactly where Alabama was, but they were pretty up there as far as sacks last year. So it's like I've already kind of said about Womack's defense in previous shows. It's not really, you don't see massive sack numbers, and if you were to look at the sack numbers, which is probably one of the first things people look at when they try to decide if a defense is good or not, when really that has very little to do with it in a lot of cases. But you probably wouldn't be impressed with Kane Womack's defense. Like his leading sack guy, pretty much every year, sitting at like 6 or 6.5. There was a year with 4.5. Really, one year that I can remember, I think it was like 2016 when he was the defensive coordinator at South Alabama. Randy Allen ended up having 12.5 sacks that year, and but other than that, I mean, there's been nothing even close to that. But from a turnover perspective, they're certainly going to be improved, in my opinion, because that's what this defense is designed to do. They want to generate pressure to get turnovers, because when you can affect the quarterback will make mistakes. It can be a terrible quarterback. It could be a really good quarterback. That is the bottom line. If you're going against Peyton Manning, if you're getting pressure on him, which it was hard to do that because of what he could do as far as recognition, knowing where to go with the football, all those different things, but if you could get pressure on Peyton Manning consistently, he was gonna, make some mistakes. Now, some guys are quote unquote better under pressure, but even those types of guys, when they're put under pressure, they might, be incredible on 9 out of the 10 reps. But that 10th rep, man, is an interception, and you're able to get a turnover. This defense is designed to get turnovers, and I think they're going to end up having a lot of them, and it's going to be fun to watch. They're going to be a bunch. The defensive front will look a lot more aggressive to you. You'll see penetration, in the backfield, guys making plays in the backfield quite a bit more. Second level of guys attacking a lot more because they know what gap, they're responsible for. It's not reading and deciding. Right. It's going to be fun to watch this defense, man. And you're going to see some turnovers for sure.
All right, guys. Hey, all of you, has been so much fun hanging out. From Knoxville, we got Montgomery in the house. How about this? Harvest, Alabama, and Gulf Breeze, man. I love, hey, put me in Gulf Breeze, not too far from Fairhope, where I live. So, yeah, love that too. And I guess the final thing, Clint, is just setting us up. What's next for Alabama? What are they doing over the weekend?
Yeah, they're starting to turn their attention to Western Kentucky, and that's kind of, that's what you want. These couple of extra days, instead of having to worry about playing the game on Saturday and then kind of recapping or focusing on yourself on Sunday, it's immediately shifting your focus this weekend to the opponent, and we'll see how much that helps. I guarantee you, Western Kentucky has been preparing for quite a while for Alabama, because this is their chance to pull off the miraculous or the incredible. So I guarantee you, it's not Nick Saban's Alabama anymore as far as him leading the charge, but people still know beating Alabama can make your season. So I'm sure they'll get Western Kentucky's A game. Alabama's got to be prepared for that, but now the focus shifts to them.
All right, guys. Don't forget too, you want one of these t-shirts, and they are, I think you'll like them. I think you'll like, I will tell you this. I'm going to tell you this now. Go, if you're, I'm like a large, extra large guy, right? I'm like right in the middle. I went extra large. It's perfect, right? If I would have went large, I would have been a little tight. So what my recommendation is, go get that annual subscription and go up one size. And I think you'll feel you'll be perfect, or if you're borderline, you know what I'm saying? Like if you're borderline, go up one size.
Go up a size. No. With borderline or not, go up a size.
Go up a size.
Unless you like, if you're one of those like really fit dudes that loves wearing skin tight shirts or whatever, sure. What I would suggest in that instance, just go with what you would normally wear as far as a size. Like don't go down. Don't medium this. This isn't a schmedium.
And that's what you like, though. When maybe you're one of those guys, and you like something to show off all your ripped muscles,
or in my case, all the rolls. Like we can, Hey.
Hey, William says he's proud of you, Clint. I'm proud of you too, Clint.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, that's played football at Alabama 2009 to 2013. Won a couple national championships, so he's got some rings.
There you go. Yeah. There you go, man. There you go. Well, roll tide, everybody. Thanks for hanging out. With Mike Johnson and Baron Huber and that crew.
Oh yeah.
I wonder if he ever went to Williams.
Kellen Williams was one of his buddies. A couple of walk-ons. Aaron Joyner. When we did Ming's wedding, we went to Joyner's. What was it, like a hunting cabin or something? I don't even know what you would call it, but we had a great time out there. We had some fun in Tuscaloosa a couple of times. Ming could probably tell you some stories.
Ming, I hope you went to Baron Huber's party house at some point.
Have you been to Baron Huber's party house?
That was life-changing over there. Kind of.
So apparently you have.
Yeah. I've been to it. Oh yeah. I've been to it. Not back in the day. Now it was after he got out of football when I started hanging out with him. But Baron and Big Kev and his mom and sister, great people, man, great people. All right, listen, roll tide, everybody. Thanks for hanging out again. Cover Crimson, covercrimson.com. You get this shirt with an annual membership, and Reed says if you go ahead and do the annual membership right now, he'll have it out to you in the morning. So and then that gives you a whole year to hang with us. I'm promising you, we got a lot of really cool stuff coming on that, on the website. And then also you get access to exclusive video that you have to be a member to get, including, I'm not allowed to say anything, but a show with a guy that Ming would know very well.
Very well. Yeah, you are correct.
I would know that. Yeah. Thanks for hanging out. Let's have a great weekend, everyone. Roll Tide.